How's it going, everyone? Dylan here from All You Can Board, and I've got a different kind of video today, at least different for me. Carlo has done a video like this. He called it Curating My Collection, which is the alliteration in there is just so much better than mine, which is just games leaving my shelf. Mine's a little more direct in that sense. It's basically the same thing, though. I obviously have a whole bunch of board games here. I've got two Kallax shelves, one bigger one smaller one, and they are full to the brim. So every so often, it's just time to do a little bit of a purge and get rid of some games. So it's always a little bit of a hard decision. Sometimes some are a little bit easier than others, but when you get to this many titles, sometimes you just have multiples that have, some of the same mechanics, or ones that just play similar, or you just realize that out of everything, you're just never going to choose to play this game. There's a variety of reasons. My situation is obviously a little bit more unique because I have so many. I think if you're someone who only has, say like 10 games, 20 games, you have less reason or less incentive to get rid of some, or if you are, it's maybe a little bit of a tougher decision. So don't take these games that I'm going to pick as sort of like that they're bad, or like you should also get rid of them, or anything like that. This is very much in a vacuum in terms of like how like my situation compared to what yours may be or someone else's, and it's just also preference. Like, I could get rid of a game here that you would personally love, and there's a few here that I know are hits and that people would, do enjoy or would enjoy playing. It's just for me personally, they don't make a lot of sense anymore. So let's jump right in with the very first game that we're going to talk about, which is Lanterns. So Lanterns is a game I've actually had in my collection for a while, and I do really enjoy this game. I have played it a lot, and one of the reasons I got it and one of the reasons I enjoyed playing it so much was it's a game that people that don't play a lot of board games, it's an easy one to get to the table and to have fun with. And a lot of the mechanics, they are very simple, but it does offer this thing that even when it's not your turn, you're benefiting from some of the tiles being placed in terms of the cards you can draw. And you can get a little tricky with that too, where, even though I'm drawing cards for these colors, the colors that I'm giving to you, I'm giving you specifically colors that the cards aren't available. So the way the game plays is, you're playing these square tiles to the board, and every time you match colors on the tiles, there's 4 colors, one for each side, you're drawing tiles based on where those colors are facing. And if they're facing your opponent, they're drawing colored cards as well. So even when it's on your turn, you're having to balance what cards you're drawing and what cards your opponent's drawing. It's this little tug of war thing. It's really neat because you can have the perfect tile to place and say, I'm going to draw this color I need, but I'm also giving them this color that they need. But you can use it to your advantage and sometimes, give them colors they don't need, or ones that don't have any cards left and they don't get a draw. So in that way, the mechanics are really good. There's a little bit of complexity there, so it's not too simple, and you're basically just trying to make certain sets of colors, or getting a matching of the same color and different things like that. And you have these scoring tiles. If you race to get the scoring tiles, you get higher scores than if you achieve them later on. So I do really like Lanterns, like I mentioned. I have enjoyed it every time I've played. After multiple plays, I find that I'm a little bit less enthused to play Lanterns. Games start to kind of feel the same, especially because I was playing Lanterns often at 2 players. I would say that often the flow would kind of go the same. Depending on the tiles you drew, it would end up being a race for the same one to start, and then generally, to catch up, you have to get this one, and then they are going to pull ahead with this one, and the scores always end up close, and someone just pulls ahead based on the tiles they drew. It had a little bit less interest there. I'd say with 3 and 4, it's more interesting, but the main reason I'm getting rid of it is because the function that it served in my collection was this niche that, hey, here's a game I can introduce to someone who might not be super into board games, but this is a simple concept and we'll have some fun with it, and it might introduce them to the next stage. And the fact is, I have a lot better options now. There's way more options that I go to before I go to Lanterns in that regard. Even at 2-player count, the games like Jaipur and Seven Wonders Duel for even more complexity. If you really want to get to the higher level, of Curious Cargo and everything, but that's a little bit more complex. But I have tons of options at 2. Stellar is another great one, and now even at higher player counts, Sub-Astral I just got was one that I would go to, and I think it's a little more simple, but has feels really good to play, and it's sort of an introductory game in some ways. And there's a whole bunch at higher player counts, like Azul. I have 2 versions of Azul. I'd go to both of those before I would go to Lanterns if I'm introducing a game to someone. Patchwork's another 2-player one. Like, I have so many that I would just gravitate towards in terms of, here's an easy game to introduce someone with basic rules that might serve as a gateway game to them, that Lanterns just never hits the table. So it's a good game, but ultimately I think it's one that has just been replaced in my collection. It might be replaced in yours if you gravitate to a lot of these sort of gateway games, or these simple but strategically fun games. I think just eventually Lanterns gets outpaced. At least it did for me. So that's the reason I'm getting rid of Lanterns. Still a great game, but just one that I personally don't play as much anymore. So that is Lanterns. Let's move on to the next one, which is the Resistance. So I am a huge fan of these hidden role games. That's actually some of the first games I ever played that really got me into tabletop gaming. Not only, but some of them were actually hidden role games. And even before that, I remember playing Mafia with my friends a lot with just playing cards. I've always enjoyed hidden role games. I love it. I love the aspect of having to deceive and lie and play a role. When you're discussing with your friends, I think it really depends what group you have. I think the group can really, influence how good of an experience you have with a hidden role game if you know the people, feel comfortable with them. You need to be okay with lying and not taking it personally when people lie to you. But if you can get into that groove, it's just a lot of fun to just sort of play these different roles. The reason I'm getting rid of the resistance is that honestly, anytime I'm able to convince people to play hidden role game, or that's what we're planning to do, we just have a lot more fun with the chaotic nature of One Night Ultimate Werewolf, especially because I have the expansion for it as well. That ends up being more fun. There's more laughter. The roles are a little bit more complex if you want them to be, and they tend to be a little bit more chaotic. It just ends up being a little bit more of a frenzy, which is kind of what I want. I'm not looking for something, competitive or, taking it too seriously. It's supposed to just be fun. Who cares really at the end of the day who wins it, like each round? It's more just the experience we're doing as we get there. The resistance is just one that always ends up not hitting the table for that reason, or when it has, we've played One Night and Resistance, and everyone ends up saying, let's just play another round of One Night, or we just sort of after the fact realize, next time let's only play One Night Ultimate Werewolf. That's just me personally. I don't have the Resistance Avalon. I know it's similar in many ways, but I know a lot of people swear by the Resistance, and that's sort of their favorite. In my instance, and I guess with the people I'm playing, the consensus, even beyond me, has always just been that they prefer One Night Ultimate Werewolf. So ultimately, with a game that requires to play have so many other people to play, I kind of do have to go with the consensus a little bit. And ultimately, I haven't played this in years now because anytime we get one of those to the table, it ends up being One Night Ultimate Werewolf. So no knock on the game whatsoever, and especially if you don't have a hidden role game, I think this is still a great one to buy and introduce to play to people, and you'll have a ton of fun with it. Me personally, it just doesn't hit the table anymore, so that's why I'm getting rid of it. Next up, we have Dice City, a little bit of a bigger box on this one. So Dice City is an interesting one. I've had this game for a while. I've played it a handful of times, and I've had fun every time I've played it, but the fact of the matter is the games that I prefer over it in that dice genre, they're different, but I always would rather, I think of those games more when I'm thinking of playing, a dice heavy experience or a game where it involves you, utilizing dice, drafting dice, or whatever the case may be, using them to modify things on the board. Dice City is a lot of fun, but I would much rather play games like, even Castles of Burgundy, which has a dice element to it, Coimbra, Voyages of Marco Polo. There's just way too many other dice games I would prefer to play over Dice City that ultimately I never end up playing Dice City. I shouldn't say never. I have a handful of times, but when I do, I'm never left with an experience going, oh, I can't wait to play Dice City again, or the next time we're going to play, or let's play another round. If anything, it sometimes makes me feel like, oh, it was fun, but next time let's play for that reason, to scratch that itch, let's play this one instead. The games I've played with Dice City have also been, and it's weird because I think they list the time here as like 45 minutes or something. Yeah, playing time 45 minutes, even though it plays 1 to 4. And I've never once had that be the experience. And I don't know if that's just because I'm playing with people that we all play slow or what the case may be. But when I played with 4, it's actually ended up being like a 2-hour game. I think that's happened twice now that I play with 4 players, and it's ended up being a very long experience. And even when I play with 2 players, it's still crossing an hour usually. And it ends up just feeling longer than it needs to be. It ends up feeling like the game is dragging a little bit for me. Again, it could just be we're playing slow. It does say 45 minutes. I don't know whether it's just my experience that's that inaccurate, or whether that's just an incorrect time listed on the box. I do appreciate that it plays solo and it has that option. I think that if you're really into Dice City and into the mechanics that it brings, being able to play solo on your own is a huge benefit. And I do think that the artwork, the theme, and the way it's all put together is really fun. Like, for those who don't know, you basically have your own player board that has, I think it's a 5x5 grid. Each one has a color associated to it, and then on the top columns, each one has a number of the 6-sided dice, 1 to 6. And basically at the start of the game and at the end of each round, you're rolling dice, and if you roll, say, a blue 3, you're looking at the blue row, and then you're putting it into the 3 column, and that's where you place your die. You're doing that for all 5 of the colors, and basically on your turn, you are choosing for each of those placements whether you want to use the die for the action space that's underneath it, or you want to use it to, say, move another die to another spot, or there's a whole bunch of other things you can do with it. And then you're also upgrading the building, so you're able to build from a common supply. put new buildings on your board that then you can activate on later turns with dice. If you're, again, anything with dice, there isn't a luck component here, but it's also a game where you can modify dice and move them around so you don't feel like you're too restricted there. The mechanics are solid. It's really fun. There is a lot of player interaction, which I think might be a reason that it's not always clicking with the people I'm playing with. And I shouldn't say that, I'm not saying that as if player interaction is a bad thing. Believe me, it's a great thing. But I find that this one's so direct sometimes because you're attacking other people's locations on the board and then deactivating them essentially, that sometimes it can just feel a little bit more mean than some people are expecting. I love player interactions, but when it's very directed at a player and you're playing with 4 and you're choosing to attack someone and deactivate their ability and slow them down, it can get a little frustrating sometimes when people are on the table. I don't always play with very competitive tabletop gamers. Sometimes it's a mix, some are competitive, some it's more casual. I find that the very direct attacks can sometimes be a turnoff for some people. And it doesn't always just feel great in general the way it's executed. I love the aspect of how you can choose what to do with the dice and upgrading your buildings. Again, it is a solid experience. I have enjoyed it. It's just not my go-to for dice games or of this nature where you're choosing how to utilize your dice, changing values, moving things around, executing actions with it. Again, I always fail to call Castles of Burgundy a dice game, but even though dice are so heavily involved in it, it's just never how I think of it. But I'd much rather play Castles of Burgundy. It's one of my favorite games, but I'd much rather play Coimbra. I'd much rather play, a game like Sagrada isn't, it's very different in the way it uses its dice than Dice City. But if I'm thinking of dice games that I have an itch for, I just gravitate to a lot of other games besides Dice City. So that's why it's leaving my collection. I've had my fun with it, and I've had some good times with it, but ultimately it's time for it to go, and there's going to be other games I'm going to play instead. So that is Dice City. Next up, a game that Carlo's going to kill me for putting on this list, but then again, he owns it, so if I really, regret it, I can just board it off him, or maybe he won't let me because he'll be like, well, you shouldn't have gotten rid of it. That is Hive. So this is one of Carlo's favorite games, I think. Or I don't know overall, but he really does love it a lot. He's played a lot of it. Me personally, so I got Hive because Carlo had it. I played it, I think, once with him, and he talked it up a lot. And this was early on when I was buying tabletop games. This is one of my first games I think I bought. And, I had a really good time with it. And so I got it, and, he was raving about it as well. And I have enjoyed it. I just haven't played it a lot. And I've realized, I wondered for a while, and I even asked myself why I wasn't playing Hive a lot. Other people would suggest, and I wasn't always enthused to play it. And I've realized that it's not often that in abstract games like this, I compare this sometimes to chess and that kind of abstract game where, each tile has its own purpose and can move it in a different way and has its own ability, whatever the case may be, and you're having to utilize them. It's not that I don't like that, but it's not my favorite genre, and it really has to be a solid game that utilizes those mechanics to hook me. And the game I'll use to compare is Santorini. So Santorini is a little bit different because, it's not like you have a bunch of different pieces and each one has its own ability, but it has its own kind of chess feel to it. You're moving pieces around. The god powers change what you can do, and your opponent can do things differently. I gravitate more to a game like Santorini in its execution than I gravitate to Hive. So when I'm sitting down to play an abstract game right now, I'm not choosing to play Hive especially because I play Santorini at 2 players primarily, and this is a 2-player game. If I'm convincing someone or they want to play an abstract game of that type or one that's plays shorter, we can play multiple rounds, I'm not choosing Hive, and I'm choosing Santorini almost every single time instead. So that contributes a lot to me getting rid of it. The one benefit of Hive in that regard is that, and I think this is that Carlo's done this and played this a lot in this way, is that you can play Hive as a travel game. It even comes with a bag in the box that, here, I'll actually pull it up. It comes with a bag in the box that holds all the tiles. See here, right? And you don't even have to bring the box with you. It has an insert underneath that allows you to, place all the tiles. But the idea is you can pop that bag into your backpack, your travel bag, whatever, and you can play this on an airplane, you can play this on a train, you can play this on vacation in your hotel room. Like, it's a very easy game with no board. It just, sometimes the board with the tiles grows out large enough that it makes it a little complicated, but generally you can do it. And, in that sense, you're not pulling out Santorini on a plane and playing it. I mean, hey, if I looked over the next row and I saw someone playing Santorini on the, the little food table that you pull down or whatever, I would be damn impressed, and I would be trying to, trade seats next to them to go get in a game. I would love it. I'm not saying it's the most practical to carry all the components of Santorini and all the bags of all the different towers and stacking them up and hoping the towers don't fall over when you hit turbulence. So not the most practical in that sense. I think Hive has a beat there. But again, for me personally, I play Santorini more. I enjoy Santorini more, and Hive, and as an abstract genre, it's not my favorite to begin with. So a game like Hive for me just doesn't hit the table enough. And again, I'm also benefited that Carlo does have it. If I have the itch, I can just ask Carlo to throw it out a game of Hive, and as long as he doesn't punish me too much for getting rid of mine, I'm sure he'll say yes. So that is why Hive is leaving my collection. Next up, this one is going to be one that I'm sure some people are going to really not like that I'm getting rid of. I have to preface this by saying I do really like this game. I'll let you know why I'm getting rid of it. So that is Time Stories. This is the base experience. So Time Stories is a game that I had on my list to buy for a long time and just for whatever reason didn't, or I couldn't find it at the times I thought about buying it. And I think it was last Boxing Day. It was on a massive sale on one of the Canadian retailers, and I picked it up. So I finally played it with Carlo when we were at the cabin one weekend. We played it. It was great. I had a great experience. The problem for me with Time Stories is this is a game, for those who don't know, it's a legacy game, but the idea is that you are playing a scenario. So let's use the scenario that came in here as an example. You're exploring that scenario, and you're basically on a bit of a time limit. You're going to run out of time before you cannot do any more actions. All these time agents are going to be pulled back because you're going to a different period of time for each scenario, and you're basically going to have to keep all that information that you have from what you explored. Remember that when you went to this location, this happened. When you went here, that's how you got the key to open this gate, whatever. Retain that information, play, and that's the end of your session, either immediately or next time you guys get together, play again with all that retained knowledge and basically be able to move quicker. So now I know where the key is for this gate, so you can just do it right away instead of having to spend a bunch of time figuring that out. And now you make it farther in the scenario and farther, and eventually you'll be able to, however many sessions it takes you, you'll be able to complete the scenario with all the knowledge you're retaining. It's a fantastic concept, and I like the way it's executed in a board game. But the fact of the matter is, if you are not playing consistently with the same group often enough to retain this knowledge or be able to refer to your notes and understand what happened, if you're not doing that enough, you're not going to get the full benefit out of Time Stories. It's been so long since me and Carlo played. If we went back now, we would forget almost everything that happened. We would basically it would be like we were playing for the first time again on that scenario. Maybe we'd remember a thing or two, but that's how you have to approach Time Stories. You have to be ready to meet consistently with, or live with someone, whatever the case may be, and play it consistently to get the full benefit. And if you do that, it's probably going to be an amazing experience, especially because there's all the scenarios you can add on. You're probably going to love it. The problem is I could do that and get the group together, but there's already games that I am doing that for. And when the pandemic's over and I'm gathering again, Gloomhaven, our scenario, we were one scenario away from finishing that, or two scenarios away from finishing that. That's going to be the first thing I get together on. Frosthaven comes out later this year. I'm going to be doing a Frosthaven group for God knows how long. That was in the Gloomhaven group for 2 years. I have Oathsworn Into the Deepwood coming, which is another one I'm going to get into. I was playing Tainted Grail with a group before. I already have so many of these games that I'm meeting regularly with groups where I honestly don't have room to meet with a group to play Time Stories. If I did, this would not be leaving my collection unless I had already finished all the scenarios and I didn't have use for it anymore. So that's literally the only reason it's leaving. It has nothing to do with the quality of the game. It's just, for me, Gloomhaven and Frosthaven take precedence. Oathsworn takes precedence, and I'm sure that by the time I finish all those, then games like Iridia will be out, and I'll be playing that one. I love campaign games. I'm getting Sleeping Gods sometime soon, so there's all these campaign games I'm getting that I just don't have room for another legacy game like this, unfortunately. So that's the reason it's leaving. Don't fault me too much. I know it's a great game. I just personally don't have the willpower, the fortitude to have another campaign group going. That's the only reason it's leaving my collection. All right, let me look at my time here. Okay, we're doing good. Next one leaving my collection is another game I like, but it's just been eclipsed by some other ones, and that is Cottage Garden. So Cottage Garden is a polyomino game, and it's by Uwe Rosenberg. It's part of the set of polyomino games that includes Spring Meadow and Indian Summer. Patchwork, I guess, is also in there, but that came first, and it's, I don't know if that's technically considered part of the trilogy or the quadrilogy or whatever. It's a great game. Out of Spring Meadow, Cottage Garden, and Indian Summer, I actually think Cottage Garden is my favorite one. It's definitely if not, it's second for sure. It's again, this is one where it has nothing to do with the quality of the game. It's more so that now, with how many polyominoes I've accumulated in my collection, I never play Cottage Garden. There's other ones I just prefer to play. I prefer to play New York Zoo. I really like New York Zoo. I prefer to play Barren Park, and that Barren Park actually has a lot of similarities to Cottage Garden in terms of multiple polyomino boards that you're utilize instead of one giant one. I prefer to play Patchwork. So with 2 players, I'm playing Patchwork. With anything above 2 players, I'm playing Barron Park or New York Zoo. My City is another one that, the Legacy version kept me busy for a long time, but even the version you're left with after the Legacy version is a really simple polyomino to introduce to people. There's way too many polyominoes that I'm playing over Cottage Garden. I mean, if I want a heavy experience, I'm playing Feast for Odin even. So it was a circumstance of, I looked at it and I said, when was the last time I played Cottage Garden? Can't remember. When is the next time I'm going to play Cottage Garden? No idea. It won't get played for me personally. I will say though, if you haven't played Cottage Garden, and if you don't have a lot of polyominoes in your collection, or you've just played, very entry level ones, or you play Patchwork, for instance, I would really recommend actually checking Cottage Garden out, because I think it's a really great one, and I've had a great time when I've played it. And it has the perfect theme if you're going to the cabin or the cottage a lot and looking for these more laid back games. The theme matches, the gameplay matches, it's a great choice. So, and I know people who still have it, so I can still play Cottage Garden if I really get the itch. But for me, it's just other polyominoes have eclipsed it. So that is Cottage Garden. And last but not least, maybe least, is First Martians, Adventures on the Red Planet. So lots of controversy, not controversy, I would just say that it's been a very tepid response to this game. And I got it because it was on a massive sale, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna play this game solo maybe, or with one other person, and even if it's not the best experience for this price, I'll enjoy it. I was wrong. I have not enjoyed it. And most of that is less to do with the gameplay and more to do with the complexity. For how much you have to learn and how much you have to set up and how complicated it is and how many components there are, the payoff is just not there. It's I'm not even going to get into what all the mechanics are, because to be honest, it's been so long since I played it, I really can't explain them to you well. I remember setting it all up. I remember learning all the rules, and I'm like almost finally have I'm like 3/4 through learning them all, and I'm realizing this is going to have a steep hill to climb to pay off on how much work I'm putting into learning this game, and it just didn't pay off for me. I think I didn't even get through the full scenario. Or no, I did. I finished the first. I played one session of it, and I think I started to do the second. I was like, why am I doing this? I didn't enjoy the first one. I kind of just let myself off the hook there. So for me, I ended up being wrong. I thought I'd end up liking it more than some people did. I didn't, and that's the reason I'm getting rid of it. I know some people out there still do like it, and I imagine that if you have more of a tolerance for if you don't have a lot of games that are very complex in your collection, or you do have a lot and you're used to studying and reading all these complex rules and you're willing to put in the time, the payoff maybe is okay for you. For me, I have limited time. I'm already having a lot of complex games and a lot of games to cover for AYCB. The payoff just wasn't there, and it wasn't as fun for me. So this is the one in my collection. Out of all of them, this is the one I actually enjoyed the least. That's the reason it's leaving my collection, whereas the other ones I would say I enjoyed. They're just leaving for logistical reasons with other games. But First Martians is going, and I cannot say I'm going to miss it, unfortunately. All right, this is why did I stack them like this? This is like the most precarious way to stack it. I got the smallest box on the bottom, and I got the biggest box on the top. I'm gonna put a couple of these down so I don't have an accident with all these games when I'm trying to potentially sell them and get rid of them. I'm gonna actually just slide them out of here. So yeah, that's all the games I'm getting rid of in my collection. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Which one of these games do you think I'm going to regret the most? Which one am I going to the soonest be like, oh, I wish I didn't get rid of that game? And which one of these do you agree with the most? Which one are you like, I'm surprised you still had that in your collection. Get rid of that thing. I'm surprised you bought it in the first place. First Martians. No, but let me know. Let me know what your list is. What are some games that in the last month or two you've gotten rid of? Which ones have you parted with? I'd love to hear in the comments. I love discussing this stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Carlo's series is titled, obviously, way better than mine, curating my collection I love. I'm going to try to do this from time to time still, though, and I'm sure Carlo is as well. So you're going to see some of this and get a feel for which ones leave our collection and why, and which ones stay in our collection and last the test of time here. So hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.